What's up, welcome back, Nowstalgia. Dave here with the review of Squid Game Season 2 on Netflix. Of course, Squid Game Season 2, the follow-up to the smash hit Squid Game Season 1 from 2021, which remains the most watched show in Netflix history. Squid Game Season 1 has come under a lot of threat to that title, of course. Stranger Things released a season, Wednesday, Bridgerton, but no. Squid Game Season 1 remains the most popular show in the history of Netflix, and what makes that even more exciting and awesome is that came out without much, fanfare and aplomb in 2021, as we know, becoming the first Netflix series to reach 100 million Netflix accounts and kind of paving the way for Netflix to continue to invest in Korean content when they announced $2.5+ billion spend over the next 4 years, starting in 2023. They've had other successes like The Glory, Singles Inferno. Korean content and global content in general has become a much bigger aspect of what Netflix wants to do and what kind of business they want to be, as most of their future growth is outside the United States. And just kind of thinking about the impact of Squid Game, I mean, geez, they made a reality show on Netflix regarding Squid Game. Mr. Beast took inspiration from this. There were tons of pop-ups and activations, advertisements. I thought there was a pretty clever Domino's ad on Netflix right now, which I liked. Of course, star Jung-jae won Best Actor at the Emmys. Squid Game in general cleaned up at the Emmys, the first foreign language series to do so. Jung-jae gets cast as the lead in the Star Wars Disney Plus series The Acolyte, which was a huge look for sure. And now we know that Squid Game Season 2 is also, in fact, a big hit, unsurprisingly, breaking Netflix's record for most views for a series in its premiere week, over 50 million views. We've also now learned that Squid Game Season 2 was filmed back-to-back with the third and final season of the series that will be airing later this year, and some leaks suggest that might even be soon, perhaps the first half of the year at the end of June. We'll find out. And of course, I think the appeal of Squid Game and the success of this show really cannot be overstated. I think it's a very impressive series. Of course, it made my top 10 back in 2021 because on its face, it's high concept, right? It's familiar to things like Battle Royale and the Hunger Games and things like that. In terms of down on their luck people taking a chance and playing a life or death game for money, right? But what makes Squid Game so important is just how much more is under that surface in terms of the themes of the show. Themes of societal pressure, desperation, greed, opportunism, self-interest, tribalism, capitalist critique, I think societal comments specific to Korean life, South Korean life as well. There's a lot here. What makes Squid Game Season 2 so impressive is how it evolves and takes the themes of the first season to the next level. While Squid Game Season 1 was really excellent at its presentation of a really compelling and watchable concept, this life or death game, and using that game to push a lot of societal critique and capitalist allegory towards the viewer in a really compelling way. Season 2 turns the themes of the show back around at the individual level, not the societal level, in terms of what people will do when they're that desperate, what makes people complicit in such bad institutions and succumb to their own greed and their own self-interest. Of course, the story is far from done. The show kind of ends in a Empire Strikes Back, good guys have lost type ending. So I'm very interested to see what happens with Season 3 because there's a lot of story left to wrap up. But I do think Season 2 was compelling for where it takes the themes, even though as a season it's probably less fun to watch individually as the first season was, which of course came with so much surprise and the lack of expectations. In terms of I think what's different, Season 2 almost gives us less Lee Jung-jae, less Gi-hun. He's less of a formal lead of the show, even though he's still the lead. And I think with Season 2, the supporting characters are overall probably less effective than the core supporting characters were in Season 1. Some of these archetypes are familiar to last season, some of them are new. Overall, though, I don't know if anyone in the supporting cast is able to really rise up and have a big presence the way Ho-yeon's character did in the first season, right? And again, we'll see. A lot of these characters are still around for Season 3, so we'll find out. Also, I think the kind of secondary side plot outside of the games in terms of trying to search and find the location of the island off the coast of Korea, I thought that plot was really thin and sparse. So we'll see what happens with that third season. And of course, the other big thing in season 2 is that Lee Byung-hun's frontman character actually becomes the kind of secondary lead of the show as he becomes the new player one, of course, unbeknownst to the rest of his fellow players, and he is playing the game even though he's actually the one running the show. So that I think was really cool. That kind of cat and mouse that only one side of the equation is even playing, with Gi-hun not understanding the deception. I like that a lot. And Lee Byung-hun, he's probably the most famous actor in American audiences in this show, apart from, I guess, Lee Jung-jae's inherited popularity from Squid Game. Byung-hun has been in some Hollywood productions in the past after. I certainly knew who he was already. But it's definitely cool to see him and Lee Jung-jae play off each other. I really like that dynamic. I took a lot of notes about what happened in this series. There's obviously a lot of plot that happens on this show. I'm just going to go over a few of the highlights here. I loved in episode 1 how we have this focus on the recruiter character who we spend a little bit of time with in season 1, played by Dong-hyuk. Dong-hyuk gets like a showcase episode in episode 1. I think it's very memorable. He was very memorable in that first season, and he gets to show more, and we learn a little bit more about what that character was up to and who that character was in this first episode. Watching his bread or lottery game that he was playing with people he encountered out in public, I think, again, a lot of this you could say is on the nose thematically. I like it. And I thought that does a really good job of highlighting what the show's interested in with this new season. We don't actually get back to the games until episode 3. I did think it was fun, maybe predictable, but I really thought it was fun that Gi-hun's tooth tracker gets found out by the game makers immediately, and he realizes that he's once again fucked and back in Squid Game, even though he volunteered to return. I thought that was pretty fun. Even like the lead up to that, right? The Halloween episode 2, where he's kind of going to try and seek everything out. I think all that really works. Then once we get back to the games, it's fun to watch these games when you have a lot of expectations and you have familiarity with the games, at least the past ones, only one of which returns, the red light, green light first game. I liked that, and it was fun to see Gi-hun do this kind of guardian angel type vibe where he's trying to save everyone and end the games that way. And then there's a big focus in season 2 about everyone voting to end the games and volunteering to end the games, whether you even believe that's going to work or not. And perhaps that gets a bit repetitive because you kind of have a sense watching the show that the games are going to always continue. But the show does switch up everything at the end of season 2, where they have the mutiny, they have the rebellion. We don't just keep playing all the games. Of course, in episode 3, that's where we get introduced to a lot of the other players. Immediately, someone who stands out would be Thanos, the rapper character, of course, played by Big Bang's Top. I thought Top was actually kind of fun in this role because he's so over the top and so ridiculous in the performance, but that's the character he's playing. So to me, it kind of made a lot of sense. I enjoyed him as a villain on the show, someone who is motivated and wants to keep playing the games. And as I said before, I really like the focus on a lot of these different characters and their reasonings and their motivations for why they are choosing to vote to continue the games or vote not to. Early on, we have everyone's debts exposed to the whole crowd and put on, Front Street why all these people are here. Of course, they all, willingly volunteered to play this game after all. I thought one of the other secondary subplots, namely the character we get introduced to early on, she's like a mother whose child is still in North Korea. She's a defector, and she joins up with Squid Game, but as a soldier, as a staff member of the games. And we still don't really know a whole lot about her, but like that was her motivation to join up. And then she ends up finding herself as someone who, when people get killed, she does a lot of like the double taps to make sure these rogue workers don't get the organ harvest people before they get fully killed. All of that, again, pretty thin. We just don't have enough connection with that character to really like invest in that plot. We'll see what happens with season 3, but that was probably my least I thought that was the least interesting aspect of the second season, just because it just wasn't played out enough. In theory, I would love to see other sides of the game, namely, what is that staff like? Those people, why are they signing up to literally murder people? What's going on with that? It just isn't developed enough I did enjoy just, from the spectacle from the TV watching angle. I liked a lot of the newer games. I thought the one where they're on the spinning wheel and have to make the numbered groups really worked. Probably the best game of all is that 6-leg pentathlon game. I thought that was quite good, very cinematic. I enjoyed that one. I think some of the stuff with the trans character is done very heavy-handed, but that character gets more and more to do as the season progresses, and will still be around for season 3. So I'm hopeful that that character will, I think, pay off a bit more. But I think a lot of the kind of obvious, like really rote dealings with old person talking to trans person and saying off color things, like, I didn't think any of that was like the best material, that's for sure. And I do think at the end, when the front man has Gi-hun's friend from home killed and then captures him, I do think that lands as a like feel bad ending, because I do think you get connected to Gi-hun's friend over the course of the season. So yeah, I like Squid Game season 2. I don't think it's as good as the first season. Just I think as a season of TV, I don't think it is, even though I think it's a impressive like thematic evolution. And I think a lot of people's feelings about this season will depend on how season 3 goes, because this was very much a interstitial or 2A season, and then season 3 is really like a 2B. So we'll find out. And again, I am willing to give the show a lot of grace in that department, because this show was never conceived as a multi-season story. The creator has openly said as much, and it does seem like it's coming back with pretty compelling way of ending the story. Now we know that the Gi-hun story will end with season 3 no matter what. But yeah, I mean, Netflix, I remember years ago, right? Ted Sarandos had said, wouldn't it be cool if the next Stranger Things was from a different country? And it is. They found another media franchise, another brand that they will obviously continue for God knows how long in Squid Game. And that is pretty cool. Let me know, what did you think of season 2? What did you like most about it? Let me know. And for more TV reviews, subscribe. I'll see you next time.